Tui to our career spotlight on the radiation therapist. And this is brought to you by the Regina District Industry Education Council, and will be available on YouTube following the presentation. If any students are watching the YouTube presentation, please fill in the survey for a chance to get entered into a chance to win a $50 gift certificate. Your information helps us improve these Zoom presentations. So without any further ado, I will make this happen for Deanna.
I am Deanna, as Mr. West was saying, and I'm a radiation therapist with the Saskatchewan Cancer Agency. So before we get started, I'll tell you a little about me. So I graduated from Central Butte School, and then I went on to the University of Saskatchewan to get my degree in kinesiology. I then found Jackie at a career fair, and I learned about the Saskatchewan School of Radiation Therapy. So I then applied and got in, thankfully, and I became a radiation therapist. So I've been a radiation therapist for 8 years now with this at the Saskatoon Cancer Center. When I tell people what I do, I usually get met with a blank stare because they don't know what I do. So the simplest way to explain a radiation therapist for me is to tell them that I am a radiation therapist, so I plan and deliver cancer treatments to cancer patients. And so a way to break it down for you, to get you to know our roles and responsibilities and our jobs, is to go into our 3 main areas at the radiation department. So the first step when a patient gets the news that they're going to be coming to us from their doctor is they come for a planning CT. So can I go back to the planning CT slide? Thank you. So they come for a planning CT. So what happens is that planning CT is really important. It's different than the other CTs that they've gotten throughout their cancer journey. They come to us for this so that we can individualize a plan for them. So my job is, when the patient shows up to the planning CT, I go out and I get them, I identify them, I make sure that I have their correct name, the correct birthday, the correct site that we're treating, and then give them a little education about what to expect during this CT scan. So we want to make sure that they're nice and comfortable with us before we get going with that CT. We want to make sure that they're as relaxed as possible for coming into us, because the position that they are in for this CT scan is what they will be for the rest of their treatments. And they can be treated with us anywhere from 1 to 40 times. So it's really important to write down and to get that position correct and make sure that the patient's telling us if they are okay, like if that position is as comfortable as it can be for them. And in order to get that position as comfortable as can be, we fabricate immobilization devices. So if we're treating in the chest, we want the arms above the head. So that top photo there shows that their arms are up above their head and on a wingboard type device. And so that's to get their arms up and out of the way so that, and relaxed down. And we want to be able to make sure that that's reproducible on the units. So we use a wingboard. Or if we're treating anywhere in the head and neck, we don't want them to move their head at all. So we fabricate a mask for them. It's kind of like a mouth guard. It comes like, not a mouth guard, but that's how you make it. It starts off as a plain, flat surface. You put it in a warm water bath, and then you smush it over the face and you let it dry on the patient's face. And that keeps them from moving around in the machine. Or if we're treating in the pelvis, we can make a back lock for them. It starts off as a squishy beanbag chair. We then get the patient where we want them to be, and we suck out all that air so it creates a mold for them. So whatever we do in that CT position is what they have to do on the units. So it's really important that once you have either the mask or the back lock or the wingboard, that you write that in the setup notes. So our setup notes, we write down everything. We write down where we've tattooed them. We write down their doctor. We write down their name. We take pictures if it's a complicated setup. So if it's an arm, often we will have to take a picture because you can just have that arm, however, in many different ways. And so on the unit, it's just way easier if you include a picture. And in the CT, they also have these lasers that come out, and the same lasers are in the treatment unit as well, so that you can take that from position from the CT to the units. And so at the end of the CT, when we have everything the way we want it, we line them up to that arrow, and we have little crosses through the lasers, and then we give them a little teeny tiny tattoo freckle, and those become very important on the setup. We mark that in the setup notes if we've given them no tattoos, if we've used old tattoos, if we have used more than 3 tattoos or more than our standard amount of tattoos. And so once we tattoo them, we get that patient down off the bed and we give them education about what to expect on their first day when they come to us. So if they need to have a full bladder, we make sure that they know why they have to have a full bladder. If they have any questions about our big giant machine, they know we can answer those questions and try to get them as comfortable as possible. And so once we've given them that education, we then take them out to the reception desk and we tell them, we get them their first appointment. And that's usually about a week from when they're planning CT is to their first treatment date. So that in that week, their chart then goes into dosimetry, so our treatment planning. And that's where we make an individual plan for each of our patients. So the doctor will come along and they will contour or draw on the tumor volume that they want for us. And the treatment planner then goes ahead and they draw on any organs that are at risk and all the healthy tissue and volumes that are within that treatment area, because we need to know what area is getting what for dose, because we have very strict constraints and we need to know what those are. And so once the treatment planner has drawn on those volumes, they send it to the doctor, where the doctor then decides, yes, that looks good for the volumes that I want drawn on, or you need to fix this up before I'll approve it. And once the doctor is happy with that, they approve, and then the treatment planner can go ahead and plan their treatments. So the goal of planning is to achieve the highest dose of radiation to the tumor while making the healthy tissues get as small of dose as possible. And we also have to follow the prescription of the radiation oncologist and meet the needs of that. So with the plan, we want to make sure that there's no areas that are getting a lot of radiation and some areas that are colder. We want to make sure that the dose distribution is good and even, and it looks nice throughout. We don't want any hot spots as can go, or we don't want any hot spots in the plan. So once the planner has decided that they are happy with that plan, it gets sent back to the doctor, and the doctor either approves it or says, no, I want you to tweak this or that. And once the doctor has approved that plan, it then becomes, we have to decide if the machine is actually able to deliver it, because the machine can swing 360 degrees, but we have a couch that's in there and there's also a patient in there. So sometimes we have to make sure that we're not going to collide with the patient, because the software doesn't always account for that. So we make sure, and this all happens before the patient even comes for their first treatment. So once we have decided and approved a plan that is going to be achievable and meets the dose restrictions and is ready to go, it is then time to bring in the patient. So this is where we get to really know our patient. This is my favorite part of radiation therapy. It's on the treatment unit. So the first day they come, they're nervous, they're scared. We go and get them from their waiting room and we give them education. We tell them what to expect with us and that they won't see anything and they won't feel anything, and that the machine looks like a great big giant mix master and it just spins around and it will never touch them. So we get to tell them all of that. And well, one person's doing patient care and education to that patient, your team member that you're working with is in the room and they're setting up the room. They're getting the room ready. So they're looking at those CT notes and they are going ahead and bringing back what they used in that CT. So if they used the mask, then the mask needs to be out and ready to go. If they used a backlock, the backlock needs to be out and ready to go. And so we get the bed set up for them. We bring the patient in the room and we then set up the patient. So those tattoos that we gave at CT, we then line up the patient to on the bed. We use those lasers and the same system. It's really important for the patient to lay nice and still for us. So we often have to remind them not to help us. We're just moving very tiny amounts. It's way easier if they just lay like a stack of potatoes for us. And then we tell them when we have them all set up. And that's usually when the patient gets an itchy eye or nose. So they bring their arm down and scratch and we reset up. And so once we have them in the right spot, we then leave the room and we tell them that we're leaving the room and we go and we begin the treatments. So the first step before we can actually start delivering the treatments is we image. So every day we take X-ray pictures to make sure that that patient is in the exact same spot they were at the CT scan. So the treatment planners, they send over images from the CT and we take X-rays and then we can overlay them. And we want to make sure that the patient's in the exact same spot, because when the doctor draws on his contours for the tumor volumes, they give us about a 3mm wiggle room for air. So we are very precise and have to pay very close attention to detail when we are with the patient and we're moving the images to make them so they set up nice. Once those images are set up, we then send those values. So if we move the patient 3mm, we send that value into the couch bed and the couch bed can move. We have 6 degrees of freedom with our couch. So we can do left, right, at post. We have pitch and roll, we call it. And so all of those numbers that we have to determine from the imaging go into the treatment bed and the patient gets in the correct spot. Your co-partner that is with you, that isn't driving the machine, is checking the fractionation, like the amount of treatments that that patient's had to make sure it's lining up with the treatments that you have on your machine as well, so that we have different safety checks in place. The co-pilot, also while you're image matching, is making sure that patient isn't moving while you are matching the images. And then I would take over watching the patient to make sure that they're not moving while your co-pilot approves that your images are done as well. Once all of those have been in place, we begin the treatment. So the radiation machine, it makes a loud beeping sound. You can't see or feel anything. The machine moves 360 degrees. Your job when you're treating is to make sure that the machine isn't going to collide with the patient. You're making sure that the patient isn't moving or have to cough or need you at all. And the treatment itself takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So we have patients every 10 to 15 minutes. Once that 10-minute treatment is, and that's us setting you up to the time the radiation is delivered. So once that radiation is delivered, the radiation in the room is gone. The patient's not radioactive. They are able to go and be around other people because they don't have any radiation left in them. The radiation did its job, now it's done and it's off, and we can go in the room and get them down. So if oftentimes after the patient has laid on our table for 10 or 15 minutes, they think of other questions that they have for us. So one patient's often doing more education to make sure that we are supporting the patient with the side effects that they're having, and when we need to know when to get a hold of other people in the healthcare team as well. And then your partner's often cleaning up the room as we go throughout. And so that is how our patients go through their day-to-day. But what the patients don't always see us doing in the background, so some of our hidden jobs that we do is so much quality assurance. So we need to make sure our machines are up and running correctly. We need to make sure they're doing exactly what they are supposed to be doing. So it takes about 45 minutes for us to warm up our machines and make sure that we're having good quality checks. The next other quality assurance that we do is on patient charts. So before the patient comes, we write up the chart. We make sure that the fractionation or the amount of treatments is correct. We make sure the prescription is correct, what is actually said to be treated. We make sure that we have everything in the room that we need to treat that patient. And so we do that before they even get there. After their first day, we then look at the images that we've treated on offline, and we send them to the doctor to make sure that the doctor approves of those images that we've been treating on. Then once a week we go through and we make sure that the patient has been treated correctly, that the images have paired correctly, that the scheduling and the amount of treatments delivered is correct, and we do that for quality assurance. And then at the end, we do the exact same thing. We write off the chart and make sure everything has been completed. It's very important to make sure that we deliver everything correctly, because once you turn that radiation machine on, you can't undeliver with the radiation. So quality assurance is a big part of our job. Another part is we have a lot of teamwork between the different disciplines. So the teamwork between the different disciplines, so we're in touch with doctors, nurses, dietitians, social work, the nurse ward. So we have to be able to work throughout all the disciplines. We make sure that everybody is writing stuff in the patient's chart so that there's no big gaps of knowing where people are. We go to a lot of meetings. We have staff meetings, tumor group meetings, special projects. So special projects is for us to bring in new and exciting and advancing technology. The tumor groups are to make sure that we are up to date with each specific site, and staff meetings just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. We also have a lot to do with clinical trials. So if a patient's on a clinical trial, we need to be in tune with that clinical trial. We need to know what the clinical trial is. Do we need any extra images for this clinical trial? Is the doctor required to be there while you're treating? Do we need to have that patient in a different position than what we usually do for the clinical trial? Confidentiality is a huge part of our job. We are not allowed to say anything about anyone, and that goes for staff and for patients. If I see a patient out in Walmart, I can't say hi to them first. They have to say hi to me. If I think about a patient, I can't look up in their notes and see how they're doing. It's just, if you need to know, you look at that. And we often act as a therapist for our patients and for our staff. Patients vent to us all the time, whether it be about their cancer treatment or whether it's about how they are mad that somebody didn't make them supper that night. And same thing for our staff. If we have tough times, we vent to our fellow colleagues, and it's a really great benefit of having of our job that we have. And so that leads me into rewards. So the biggest reward for me in radiation therapy is that we get to be a part of so many people's lives as they go through one of the toughest times that they've been through. We get to see them come to our department scared and nervous, and then we get to see them open up into this big shell and get to know their personalities, and it's so fun to be a part of them. We see them every day for up to 40 times, so we really get to know them. It's really great, and that's my best part of my job for sure. Another great thing that I love about my job is it's a really small, close group of colleagues. We know each other. As soon as I walk in the door, they can tell if I'm upset, or they can tell if you're really excited about something. It's nice to have that really small, close group of colleagues. And you often know what the other person's thinking, so that you can get through your day, and we have a lot of laughs with it. We have really big technical and personable skills. So we get to run all these fancy, high-powered machines. And then we also get to be a part of patients' lives. We get to be interacting with people. So we're not at a computer all day. We're not just running machines. We get to have the best of both worlds. But really for me, it's the patients. I love the patients. They're great. They are very appreciative of us. We really get to enjoy them, and they get to enjoy us, and you meet a ton of people. So some of the challenges that come along with radiation therapy would be getting a hold of different disciplines. Sometimes we need the doctor because the patient is having really bad side effects, and we don't know if we should continue our treatments before they see the doctor or not. So if we need to get a hold of the doctor or social worker, that makes it tricky because everybody is so busy at the cancer center. So it's hard to get a hold of them. And it often makes us get a little bit antsy because our scheduling is very important. We have patients every 10 to 15 minutes throughout the day. So if you start waiting for somebody, it gets very tricky to catch up, and it makes your day a little bit more hectic. We also need to make sure that with our scheduling, we are doing it correctly between our chemo patients and radiation, and when they need to happen and coincide together. Other challenges can be our setups and our matching. Depending where we are in the body makes it a little bit trickier to match, because vertebrae, you need a good landmark to be able to see where you are on the spine. Sometimes when the patient goes to CT and they put their arms above their head, they realize that their arm mobility isn't as great as it should be. So then they go home and they practice their arm mobility so that shoulder isn't in the right spot all the time. And because our tumor volumes, we don't have a lot of leeway with it, we have to be very precise. So if we are not happy with the match, and it could be 5 millimeters that we're not happy with, we have to go back into the machine, into the room, reset up the patient, and make sure that patient is in the correct spot. Another big challenge with us is distractions. We work in teams of 4, and we're working with patients. So there's tons of distractions. They can be from either a patient asking us what we were doing last night, to another therapist asking if so-and-so got their prescription filled. So lots of distractions, and that makes it a challenge, especially when we're working with such precise treatments that we are. And sometimes it can be stressful when you're working within a team or with difficult patients. Sometimes patients are sick, sometimes patients are in a lot of pain, sometimes patients don't want to be there. So those can always cause challenges, and so you have to use a lot of problem-solving skills to be able to successfully work together. Our salary is pretty good. Our wage starts at $39.95, and we increase yearly to $45.61 for our radiation therapist 1. We have radiation therapist 1 and radiation therapist 2. So our tech 2 is who you go to if you have some questions about a match, if you have any uncertainties. So when you get to be a tech 2, your wage increases a little bit as well. We have a great pension and good health benefits. Our work-life balance is pretty good. Our hours are Monday to Friday. We work 8 to 4:30, and we're on call once every 3 months. With that, so those hours are really great, but they are not flexible at all. You can't go in and work 9 to 5:30. You can't go in and work 8:30 to 5. It's 8 to 4:30, and if you have to miss, it comes out of your holidays, or if you're sick, it comes out of your sick pay days or your medical appointment hours. So we get 3 holiday weeks a year to start with, and then you work up your way up to 6 weeks, which is pretty good and fair. And we get a certain amount of sick days and medical appointments. So things have changed since I went through, and this is how we apply. Jackie might be able to help us out with that if she's still listening.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Deanna. I can step in. Yeah, things are quite a bit different. We've moved from a diploma program from when Deanna and I would have gone through to a degree exit program. So we now are partnered with Michener and University of Toronto. And so when our students graduate now, they come out with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Medical Radiation Sciences and Advanced Diploma in Health Sciences. And it's a 4-year program now. And that 4 years includes the first year of prerequisites, which you can get at a home university, University of Saskatchewan, University of Regina, or if you're from another province, you've gone to school at U of A or something like that, you can certainly transfer those credits. What we do require is a biology, a math, or it's not a math or stats, sorry, it has to be a math class, physics, and a social science. And this information comes from Michener, that's what they dictate to us of what we are asking for our students. A total of 30 credits with those 4 classes has to be included within those 30 credits. It's a 2-step process to apply. So in November of each year, the Saskatchewan Cancer Agency opens up its applications. And what you're applying for at that time is a sponsorship. And if we are going to offer sponsorship, then the second step is to apply to U of T and the Michener program, and that has to happen by February 1st. So if we offer sponsorship, we would let you know by the beginning of January so that you could be applying by February 1st. Once accepted, there's 8 semesters over 3 years, and it's full-time. There's a mixture of academic and clinical training. So the academic courses do take place in Toronto, and the clinical training takes place in Saskatchewan. And optimally, we like you to visit both cancer centers, Allen Blair and Saskatoon, to get a really good clinical experience.
Yeah, so do you guys have any questions on radiation therapy? With that quick overview.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Yeah, I just had a question for you. So these are sponsored seats that I knew at one time it used to be like, is it per province, like 3 per province, or is that still the case for these seats in Toronto?
We have an agreement with Toronto for 2 per year. So that's who we will sponsor up to 2 students per year. And just expanding on that little, what sponsorship includes is the Saskatchewan Cancer Agency will pay tuition for those 3 years. And in return, we ask for a return in service for 3 years. So, you know, we'll fork out for tuition, and in return, we'll give you a job for 3 years.
How popular are those 2 spots for the province? Does that mean that you would go on a waiting list, or would you keep reapplying year after year if you didn't get in?
Well, we haven't had to start a waiting list. Fortunately and unfortunately, I guess it depends how you look at it. We would like to get our name out there and get more applicants, because the past couple of years we've only actually sponsored 1 student. So what we're finding, and I think we're finding that nationally, is that the number of applicants for radiation therapy is decreasing. I'm not sure why. For us, I think the biggest problem is people just don't know we exist. They're very familiar with X-ray or combined X-ray lab techs, as Deanna talked about initially, but I think they don't know that we exist and that we're different from that group of folks. So at the moment, it's competitive in that it goes by marks initially, and then we have an interview process. And we're looking for some specific attributes and stuff, which I can get into if somebody has some more questions about that. But we really would like to keep our seats full. And I'm so thankful that people like you are asking people like Deanna to talk about their experiences in their profession, because that's how we get the word out.
Well, you've got an awesome platform here between, you know, the students that we reach through the Regina District Industry Education Council, and now 3 more school divisions with Prairie South, Sunwest, and Southeast Cornerstone. So we will definitely do our part to promote your seats for sure.
That's wonderful.
So it's got to be, this is Gord Heidel. I'm the executive director for the Industry Education Council. It's got to be hard, a hard job, though. You're dealing with cancer patients, and sometimes the outcomes aren't what they are supposed to be. Mentally dealing with the patients and developing a relationship with them. It's how do you deal with that? I would find that would weigh heavy on me if I was in that position.
We get that a lot. As soon as you say cancer, everyone always says, oh, it must be a sad job. But really, our job, our patients are super excited. It's their last step before they're waiting for to find out if it's cure or not. So they've been through the process. It's often not a new diagnosis for them. So they're ready to get going. So they're ready to go and they're ready to joke around, and they appreciate us because we can talk to them more than just about their cancer diagnosis. Whereas when they see someone at the coffee shop, they say, oh, and how are you feeling? Whereas we can get over we don't have to just talk to them about their cancer diagnosis. We can ask them how their dog is or anything like that. And of course, there's always going to be sad cases, but I think if you sign up for a job in healthcare, you are going to have a hard case every now and then.
Good point.
And we also have good supports too. We have social workers and they're willing to talk to us, and our colleagues too. If you ever need to vent to anyone or get something off of you, we have really good colleagues and support systems that way.
Excellent.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, sorry, Deanna, thanks for mentioning the colleagues. We have such a good support network within each other. And I'll just mention, I'm in year 32 of working in this profession, if that says anything.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That goes a long way to help you out.
And I think students like to know that as well too. You know, a lot of times you don't really know what path you're going down until you attempt, you know, different schooling. And I think being honest about the profession and what you shared with us is very good information for them. So
we definitely want a waiting list though for you. Those seats should not go empty.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully we'll make mention of this, and hopefully we'll get some views here shortly. And thank you very much to both of you. You did an awesome job of describing it, and it's an important role. So thank you.
I would suspect that you get a lot of very positive outcomes as well, and that
Yes.
must be a good celebration.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have, pre-COVID, Deanna, I mean, we can speak to the amount of gifts and, you know, people bringing us chocolates, and we're quite the chocolate connoisseurs, and the happy outcomes that we get, that people are, you know, bringing us cards and stuff. They're so appreciative of the bonds that Deanna spoke to quite a bit that we have with our patients and that we create. And then again, pre-COVID, patients would come back 6 months when they come from their review appointment, or a year down the road to come back and say, hey, here I am, I'm doing okay. I just wanted to come say hi to you again. So those are our success stories, and we're really proud of that. And there's more and more of that all the time.
That's awesome to hear. You know, the positives outweigh the negatives. It sounds like huge, and you guys make a real difference. So.
Just a question about the COVID situation. Were you able to continue with your patient care through this past year? I'm assuming, you know, things had to keep moving, especially with cancer patients. But did you notice a change at all, or you know, I'm not sure what the question is, but I guess just overall, what was this past year a very tough one for you as well, dealing with the COVID?
It was tricky. We had lots of policy changes come at us. I think as a department, we did a really good job of stepping up and doing what was asked for us and making sure that our patients felt as safe as possible. We stepped up our cleaning. Even though we cleaned lots to begin with, we cleaned extra. We cleaned every single chair after everyone was on it. We took away our change rooms and got them to change in the room. We gave them privacy in the room, but we made it so that we were wiping down every single surface that they were touching. if the patient's able to come all by themselves, we were able to get them to come into the department by themselves so that we didn't have extra people hanging around. We were making sure that we were scheduling correct amounts of time so that they aren't waiting in the waiting rooms. So
Yeah,
that part made it tricky.
thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah, and we're in full PPE now. Deanna has gone on mat leave, so since she's been gone, we're in full PPE as we treat each patient as well. So, you know, as Deanna said, we're doing our best to make sure everybody's safe. It has absolutely changed how we work. We've had to do lots of adjustments. Our number of people we treated did not change. We kept going full on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was awesome. Deanna, remind me, is it number 2 or 3?
Number 2.
Yeah. We were just sort of looking back and forth with Tracy going, I know Zoom up, I'll send you a link just so if you want to have a look and see how. You'll always be critical of yourself. Oh, I hesitated.
If anyone has any further questions specifically about how to apply or the sponsorship, and I did send you some, I think, some posters and our other YouTube link, if any of that is helpful to any of your career counselors or teachers or anything. We're happy to share that all out and get the information out there if we can help you do that too.
Okay, great.